இல்லையா இங்கதான் லெஃப்ட் எடுத்துக்கணும்.
Aditya, mute yourself, please.
அம்மா அவாಗೆ ಮಲ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರ.
Yes, Mama.
Aditya, mute yourself. I welcome you all to the next session on the philosophy of the Brahma Sutras. Srimate Anantarangari Mahadeshikaya Namaha, Srimate Krishnadatari Mahadeshikaya Namaha, Srimate Gopaladeshika Mahadeshikaya Namaha, Srimate Srinivasa Mahadeshikaya Namaha, Srimate Srinivasa Mahadeshikaya Namaha, Srimate Nigamanta Mahadeshikaya Namaha, Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha, Srimate Yamana Muniye Namaha, Srimannatha Muniye Namaha, Srimate Shatakopaya Namaha, Srimate Vishwaksena Namaha, Shriye Namaha, Shri Srinivasa Parabrahmane Namaha. तस्मै रामानुजार्याय नमः परमयोगिने यश्रुतिस्मृतिसूत्राणामन्तर्ज्वरमशीषमत् ॐ शन्नो मित्रशं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्भक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Is there any problem in audio, Aditya?
No, Mama. It's very clear. It's very clear.
Okay. अखिल भुवन जन्मस्थे भंगादिलीले विनत विविध भूत व्रातरक्षे गदीक्षे श्रुतिशिरसि विदीप्ते ब्रह्मणि श्रीनिवासे भवत मम परस्मिन् शेमुषी भक्तिरूप पाराशर्यवचस्सुधामुपनिषद्दुग्धाब्धिमध्योद्धृतां संसाराग्निविदीपनं व्यपगत प्राणात्मसञ्जीविनीं पूर्वाचार्यसुरक्षितां बहुमतिव्याघातदूरस्थिताम् आनीतान्तु निजाक्षरैः सुमनसो भौमाः पिबन्त्वन्वहम्. If somebody is having a audio problem, probably it is at your end. You please check at your end. So in the previous class, we had taken a quick look at the introductory part, which is more like a repetition of our previous course on the Vishishtadvaita. And this repetition is important because there are some people who are new in this course. And it's also good to repeat things because they are all quite important, the basic things to know. So we broadly discussed about what is Darshana, what is Vedanta and all that. Darshanas, as I told, Astika and Nastika Darshanas, it is divided into two broadly. Those who accept the validity of the Vedas, those who do not accept. And among the Nastika Darshanas are Jaina, Bauddha and Charvaka. Validity of the Vedas are accepted by Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika Darshanas, Purvamimamsa and Uttaramimamsa. These six are called Shad Darshanas. And the Uttaramimamsa is where we are going to focus now in this course. And in that there are primarily three distinct views, Advaita, Dvaita and Vishishtadvaita Darshanas, which are also, apart from the Uttaramimamsa, they are also based on Shruti and Smriti Pramanas. Shruti Pramana being the ultimate. So, and Smriti Pramanas, all the three. Smriti Pramana is mentioned by Badarayana himself in the Uttaramimamsa Sutras. So that is also important. Now, just have a quick look at the six Darshanas, Astika Darshanas. The Sankhya Darshana is propounded by Kapila Maharshi, and they accept only Prakriti and Purusha as the realities. Matter and individual self. Individual selves are many, and they are all real, and they do not accept Brahman or Ishvara or Supreme Self. And Prakriti modifies by itself just because of the nearness with the Purusha to create the world. And when Purusha attains a state of aloofness, detached from Prakriti, that is called moksha. It's very briefly, Kapila Darshana is established like that. Sankhya Karika is a famous work, and there are commentaries on that and all that. And the Yoga Shastra is very similar to Sankhya Shastra, but they accept Ishvara or Supreme Brahman in addition. So it's also called Seshvara Sankhya. Originally propounded by Hiranyagarbha, Chaturmukha Brahma, and then established through Sutras by Patanjali. With the grace of Ishvara, attain self-realization. Is generally told in the Yoga Darshana. The aim of the Yoga Darshana is attaining self-realization only and not realizing Parabrahman. Nyaya, Vaisheshika. Initially, there are two distinct. Vaisheshika Darshana was propounded by Kanada Maharshi, Nyaya Darshana by Gautama Maharshi, and they were both initially distinct and later on combined into Tarkashastra. They are both logicians and they accept matter, self, Ishvara, all are real, but they establish everything through Anumana Pramana, logic. Anumana is primary valid testimony for the Nyaya Darshana. Vedas are also accepted, but they give second place to Vedas. So they establish everything through inference, Anumana Pramana. Ishvara is also established through inference. By looking at the cause-effect relationship, that every effect should have a cause. This world also is an effect. So we can infer that there has to be a cause. And so that is Ishvara or Parabrahman. Like that they establish. But there are certain things which they accept uniquely in respect of Ishvara, whether he has a body or not and things like that. So there are all more intricate details of the Darshana, which we are not going to go into much detail now, which are, some of them are established later in they are all examined in the second chapter of the Brahma Sutra. So when we briefly deal with the second chapter, we will look at it. So moksha is through knowledge of the realities for the Padartha Jnana. And we coming to Mimamsa, the Mimamsa Shastra is, though it is established as one, there are notionally two divisions. The earlier part of the Vedas, which are primarily telling us about the Yajna, Yagas and all those karmas, and the latter part or the deciding part, we can say the concluding part of the Vedas, which give us what is the conclusion of the Vedas. It's called Uttara Mimamsa. So there are two parts of the Veda, and since they both belong to one Veda only, the Mimamsa Shastra, which explains the meanings of those Veda, the earlier part and the latter part, are also both combined together looking at Veda only. So though first part and second part, earlier part and latter part, it's a notional thing, or we can say the karma part which is prominently talking about karma, part which is prominently talking about Atman, Paramatman, Moksha and all that. They explain these parts separate distinctly, but they both put together is one Veda only. So those who study Veda, they have to accept, they have to study everything. Purva Kanda, Uttara Kanda, everything they have to study, then only we have studied Veda, we can say. So the explanations of both put together has to be one Shastra, cannot be different. So there are different views on this, but Vedanta Deshikan, Sri Ramanuja himself establishes in Sri Bhashya first Aika Shastriya, that is both put together is one Shastra. But there are some differences, and there are reasons for that also. Jaimini Maharshi, who is the student of Badarayana or Vedavyasa or Krishna Dvaipayana are the same in the Vishishtadvaitic view. And he took Jaimini to learn and propagate Samaveda. When he divided Vedavyasa, divided Vedas into 4 parts, he took 4 Shishyas, students, and then taught them the 4 Vedas, Rigveda, Ajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, asked them to propagate further. Out of them, Jaimini was chosen for Samaveda. So he is a student of Vedavyasa. But Jaimini gave importance only to karma. And he wrote a commentary, sort of a commentary we can say, on the Karma Kanda of the Vedas, the Samhita and Brahmana part of it. And it's also in the form of sutras. It's called Purvamimamsa Shastra. Primarily deal with all the karmas, yajnayagas. And then he basically resolves all the doubts that we may get in terms of performance of these karmas. Because Purva Kanda is very, very difficult to understand compared to the Uttara Kanda, because the karmas have got too many accessories and a lot of things to do. And so he had to write close to 4,000 sutras to resolve all the doubts and then establish the meanings in a proper way. But what he did, he gave importance to karma only. He did not talk about Brahman there. He gave importance to karma only. So his commentators like Shabara Swami, Prabhakara and Kumarila Bhatta and others, they wrote detailed commentaries on the sutras of Jaimini, and they said Jaimini has not accepted Brahman. Because in the sutras he didn't explicitly talk about Brahman and he gave importance to karma only. When compared to Dravya and Devata, he said Dravya is only more important, superior, because he wanted to make sure people follow karma and then don't give up. If you talk about Atman and all that, it's fine. It's very difficult to teach people and make them get interest in that. Karmas are easy to perform and they get results. And so he wanted to first make sure people follow Vedas, they have belief, they get belief in Vedas. So he gave primarily importance to karmas. All these things we come to know from Vedavyasa or Badarayana's Brahma Sutras itself. He refers to Jaimini in several sutras in his Uttaramimamsa Shastra, where he very clearly gives Jaimini's views on various aspects, including Brahman and Moksha and all those things, Devatas and all that. So that is examined, of course, in detail and all that. But the commentators, they just went by the sutras and then they said Jaimini did not accept Devata or Brahman, etc. Karma only gives fruit. So his view was, his main intention was to make sure that people don't give up following Veda itself or don't lose faith in Veda itself. So he wanted to first bring them to one step further and then they can go further and study the Brahma Sutras, etc. So that kind of approach is what is told by Vedanta Deshika in detail in his work Seshwaramimamsa. He wrote a commentary on the sutras of Jaimini called Seshwaramimamsa, where he establishes the meanings of the Purvamimamsa sutras of Jaimini in line with Brahma Sutras. So that is very clearly, that shows us that there is no contradiction between the two and they together form one. The Uttaramimamsa is based on Upanishads and they are also called Brahma Sutra, Vedanta Sutras, Shariraka Sutras, etc. It's also a kind of commentary, we can say, in the form of sutras. But it also, the main purpose is to establish that there is a particular system of thought in terms of the metaphysics the nature of the reality, the nature of the means, and the nature of the goal are very clearly established in the Upanishads. So he examines all the Upanishads, not just one, all Upanishads belonging to all the Vedas, and he says they are all unified in their thought of the nature of reality, the goal, and the means. So that he establishes very effectively in the Brahma Sutras. And while establishing that, he also clarifies various doubts that may arise to us. So it is very clearly told that mere karma cannot lead to moksha. Knowledge of Brahman is essential. The very first sutra is starting like that. You have to know about Brahman. It starts. So this is also called Vedanta Darshana. The darshanas established based on the Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa sutras of Badarayana or Vedavyasa. It's called the Vedanta Darshanas. But perhaps the sutras were all a stream of letters, and so further later on acharyas had to understand these sutras with proper certain consistency and all that. So that is why some broke the sutras at some point, some broke at some other point. So they grouped two sutras together. Some acharyas broke them into two or three sutras like that. So that kind of differences we see. Because of that, the views have changed. So the darshanas that are established through these, Shruti, Smriti, and Sutra, known as Prasthanas Traya. It's not only Sutra, but Sutra themselves are also they refer to Shruti and Smriti. But Sutras are taken to be ultimate because, in the sense, they clarify all the doubts that may arise, the apparent doubts, apparent contradictions in the Upanishads, which is the most important thing that we should get clarified. The word Mimamsa itself is derived from the root Mang Mane, means inquiry into something. That is called Mang Mane. Mimamsa is taken from that. The word Mimamsa is told in the Veda itself. Mimagam Sante, Mimam Sante. They inquire various things, there are contradictions, whether I should do this or do that. So it is told in the Veda itself, the word comes in the Veda itself, Mimamsa. It is not a word coined by anybody. It is told in the Veda itself. And Mimamsa is mentioned as one of the 14 Vidyasthanas. This is also gives us an indication that it is one Shastra, both put together. Purva and Uttara Mimamsa put together is told as only one by one name called Mimamsa in the 14 Vidyasthanas, Mimamsa. So that also tells us that they are one unit together. And it deals with establishing the meanings of various Veda Vakyas, the sentences of the Vedas. The meanings of the earlier part are established by Jaimini. Jnana Kanda are established by Badarayana. Both are in the form of sutras only. The Purva Mimamsa sutras for Karma Kanda are in 12 chapters, adhyayas or chapters. And generally, each adhyaya has 4 padas or sections. Some of them will have more. There is no definite rule that all of them should have only 4. So it is not so. Out of the 12 chapters, some of them have got more padas, etc. And there is also a Devata Kanda, which has 4 chapters, adhyayas. It's not available now. The author is supposed to be Jaimini himself, and it's also mentioned as Kasha Krishna in some works. So in the Veda, basically we have to know 3 things. One is the Karma, Devata, and Brahman. These are the 3 things to be known from the Vedas about karma, about devatas, and about Parabrahman. About karma is what Jaimini established in the Puramimamsa, 12 chapters. About devata is established in 4 chapters later on. And then about Brahman established in the Uttaramimamsa sutras of Badarayana or Vedavyasa. Totally, it has got 20 chapters, 12 plus 4 plus 4, 20 chapters. We consider this entire set as one Shastra, while some consider it as different. And there is also a proof that Bodhayana, who wrote a Vritti Grantha, it's called a Vritti Grantha, Bodhayana wrote. And he says there, Mimamsa is made of 20 chapters. So he clearly says that Mimamsa Shastra has 20 chapters, which is also valid for us to say that it is one. So in this particular course, we will be examining the views of various other systems, Advaita, Aupadhika Bheda, Bhaskaracharyas, Swabhavika Bheda of Yadav Prakasha, and also Sankhya, Nyaya, then Bauddha, Jaina, Pashupata. All those things we will be establishing, we will be examining. Badarayana himself does that. And so we will be touching upon various Shastras as we follow through. In the second chapter, especially Brahma Sutras, the non-Vedantic systems are examined. That means those who are not giving primary importance to Upanishads. The Purva Mimamsa commentators, what they wrote, and the system established through that is called Purva Mimamsa Darshana. That is primarily by Kumarila Bhatta, Prabhakara, etc. So those, they did not accept Brahman or Devata, and they tell reasons for all that. So they are also not Vedanta Darshana. And Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, these are all giving primary importance to logic, that is Anumana Pramana. Secondary importance to Vedas. They also accept Vedas, but they gave secondary place to Vedas, second place. So the Vedanta Darshana is primarily Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, and some variations of that. Like Bhaskaracharya and Yadav Prakasha's Darshanas are also variation of Advaita only. So in this course, we examine various views of Advaita system more in parallel in order to present our views clearly. Because at the time of Bhagavad Ramanuja, the prominent Brahma Sutra commentaries that are available were from Shankaracharya and then Bhaskaracharya and Yadav Prakasha. So they are called, Shankaracharya's is Advaita, Bhaskaracharya's is called Aupadhika Bheda, and then Yadav Prakasha's system is called Swabhavika Bheda. But we will not get into intricacies of Advaita in this course, as the purpose is mainly to focus on the philosophy of Brahma Sutras as per Vishishta Advaita system. That is our main focus here. Though we touch upon and examine the views of various other systems, we won't go into too much detail about all those things. So the very first question that comes to someone is whether we should start study of Brahma Sutras or not. Why is it required? So this is a first question. So in order to make sure that to clarify this particular point and to give a definite answer, Badarayana wrote 4 sutras in the very beginning. They are called Chatussutri. And for that, Shruti itself is the Pramana. Shruti says, there is a mantra in Mundakopanishad, Parikshya Lokan Karmachitan Brahmano Nirvedamayat Nasti Akritaha Kritena Tad Vijnanartham Sa Gurumeva Abhigachet. samitpanihi shrotriyam brahmanishtham. So this is explaining that a Brahmana who, after examining the worlds acquired by karma, one who has studied the Vedas and then he has performed the karmas, or he has studied the nature of the karmas, etc., he comes upon dejection that the eternal is not attainable by karma that is done. So he gets nirveda, means dukkha. He is totally dejected that I have performed so many karmas and the fruits are all very transient. They are all short-lived. They are not permanent. And so he gets greatly dejected, grief. And he should, it says, should go with sacrificial faggots called samit in his hand, for knowing that means Brahman, to a teacher who is well versed in the Vedas and he has realized Brahman. So this is a vidhi, it's called abhigachet, gurumeva abhigachet. So here the worldly benefits, whatever it is, whether in this world or in the Sargaloka and all those worlds, within the Prakriti Mandala, whatever is there, one cannot gain eternal happiness. It's well known. And anyone who realizes this and gets interested in gaining knowledge of Brahman, which will lead to liberation, ultimate bliss, is eligible for study of the Brahma Sutras. When one studies the Veda, their apparent some knowledge will come that we see words here and there, which we can understand when you studied the Veda fully, like Samhita, Brahmana, Upanishad, all three put together. And Brahmana includes Aranyaka also. In the karma part, we see that they do the karma many times. Vasante, vasante, jyotisha, ejeta. If the fruit was eternal, why should one do it many times? This kind of doubt comes. That means the fruit that is realized will end somewhere. And then one more time, if we do again, we get that fruit. One more time we do, one more time we get that fruit. Like that. So it becomes sort of clear that it is not permanent. At the same time, the Upanishads, what they teach, when you study there we come to know that it is nacha punaravartate, things like that. That means it is eternal. So when one realizes this, studies thoroughly and realizes this, one will understand that karma themselves cannot lead to eternal results. So only knowledge of Brahman can help us in attaining that. So this kind of, but the Vedas do not ordain that one should study Brahma Sutras. There is no vidhi for studying Brahma Sutras. There is a vidhi for studying Vedas, but there is no command of the Vedas that you should study Brahma Sutras, because it is said to be ragataha praptam. If one is interested, they can study. I am not interested in liberation. You don't have to study. I am interested only in Sargapala, only in long life, only in good health, only in acquiring lot of wealth. They will do the karmas that are prescribed in the Vedas for getting that. If one is not interested in moksha or liberation, they will not study. There is no need to study that. So it is not ordained. But if one is interested, they should approach an acharya and learn that. They cannot study by themselves and learn that. That is what the Vedas command is, the Veda vidhi is. Knowledge of Brahman leads to eternal happiness. So one's own desire to uplift oneself, that one gets into an inquiry of Brahman. But there is a command of the Upanishads that such a person should acquire this knowledge only by approaching a suitable acharya. One cannot, even Shankaracharya says, however really intelligent, brilliant one person is, one cannot acquire this knowledge by studying oneself. They have to approach an Acharya. That is what Vedas clearly the Upanishads declare. So thus a strong case is made for starting an inquiry into Brahman, making sure that one who is interested in attaining the eternal benefit will go into study of the. This is established in the first 4 sutras itself, in the Brahma Sutras by Badarayana, which we will look at in the next few classes. So in addition to the Vedas, Itihasas, Puranas also give us knowledge about Brahman, what should one aspirant seek, how and all that. But everywhere it is declared that Jivatman is not the body, but of the nature of consciousness, subservient to Paramatman, Ahamatma, na dehosmi, Vishnu Sheshaha, Parigraha. And so I am subservient to Lord Vishnu and do not possess anything as mine. So Atman is different from the body, senses, prana, mind, etc. is clearly taught. The essence of the teachings is of the Upanishads, which they teach, is fivefold, called Arthapanchaka. This we have gone through earlier also in our previous session in little more detail. The nature of the Parabrahman, Parabrahmaswarupa, Prapya it's called, the goal. Then the nature of Jivatman, Praptru, the seeker. Nature of the means to attainment, the Upaya or the means. Nature of obstruction to attainment, that's called the Virodhi. And the purpose, final beatitude, what do we gain? The Purushartha, the Prayojana. So there should be a purpose for doing something. So if I have to attain Brahman, what is the purpose? What do I gain at the end? And why should I attain? What is my nature? What is the nature of Brahman? Attaining whom I get this eternal bliss? Is there any relationship? Of course, the relationship also is one of the important things, which is along with this important to know. Relationship of the Jivatman with the Paramatman is also important, which is told as subservience. And if I am interested, what do I do to attain? That is the means, the upaya. And if I am performing that, for every work there will be obstructions. What are the obstructions to attaining Brahman? These 5 things they explain clearly. And Badarayana, in his sutras, clearly establishes these aspects based on the Upanishad Vakyas. So the Uttara Mimamsa or Brahma Mimamsa gives answers about all these aspects. So earlier the previous course we saw the nature of Brahman is so and so, nature of Jivatman and so, etc. In this course, what is the difference in that? What is the difference? We are also looking at the same thing. The teachings are the same. But here we are examining the Shruti Vakyas, the Upanishad Vakyas, which are talking about Parabrahman and how they establish these meanings, which is told to us through Brahma Sutras of Vedavyasa. So here the approach is very different. We go to the Upanishads and examine which part of Upanishad is teaching the nature of Brahman, which part says that there is about creation, which part is telling about Jivatman. How does it mean this? How do we understand these sentences? They seem to be having different words, different meanings, etc. How is this established that this is the meaning of this sentence? This is the meaning of this word. All these are explained in the Brahma Sutras by Vedavyasa. So we are looking at from that point of view here, which is very different from what we saw earlier. We went through just the nature of Brahman, nature of Jivatman, nature of creation, means, etc. But now we understand these in relation to the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutras, how they are establishing based on the Upanishads these aspects. How this philosophy that we saw in the introductory course is established in the Upanishads, and how are the Brahma Sutras teaching us that is what we are going to see in this particular course. So the Brahma Mimamsa or Uttara Mimamsa is written in the form of sutras. During ancient times, people were able to understand the meaning of the sutras, which are made of just few words. It is very cryptic, like a formula. It's called an aphorism. And they are in the form of nyaya. That is like a syllogism, where you have major term, minor term, middle term, etc. is all established. Like that, there is a paksha, the prima facie view, etc. The hetu, what is the reason, sadhya, what is to be attained, and what is the drishtanta, example. So there is something which we are examining, and that is established to be this with a example, with proper reasoning. So nyaya is nothing but reasoning, proper reasoning, in line with the Shrutis. So Badarayana wrote several formulas, and in each formula he teaches us certain aspect, certain meanings of the Upanishadic Vakyas. He says Brahman, for example, is the Paksha. We are establishing Brahman. What are we achieving with respect to Brahman, the Sadhya? Like we say, Brahman is the cause of the world. So he is the cause, is what we are establishing. The Paksha is Brahman. The cause is the Sadhya. What is to be established? What is the Hetu? What is the reason why we are establishing? And then what is there an example, etc. Maybe example may not be there for everything. Sometimes only Hetu will be given, etc. So each, what Badarayana has done, the classification and all, we will see later, how we are going to study those and all that. But these sutras, they teach us lofty truths in few words, without any ambiguity. They are accepted as valid by all the acharyas. The subject matter of the sutra is nothing but Upanishad statements, which in turn have Brahman as a subject matter. What do Upanishads teach us? Nature of Brahman. And what do Brahma Sutras teach us? The meaning of the Upanishadic sentences, which are establishing Brahman. So indirectly, Brahma Sutras teach us about Brahman only. So that is a connection. And why should we study Brahma Sutras instead of Upanishad directly? Directly studying Upanishad is very, very difficult because we get lots of doubts. And those doubts have to be clarified with proper reasoning. That is why we go to Brahma Sutras, which help us in understanding the Upanishad sentences with proper reasoning. Every sutra is like a rule, like a nyaya. He writes establishing aspects with proper reasoning. So that is why Brahma Sutras are given a lot of importance. And the sutra literature itself is unique to India. Nowhere in the world literature, we find sutra style of literature. And all the earlier works of Indian authors are found in the form of sutras, whether the Vyakarana Sutras, Nyaya Shastra, Aryabhata's works, Vaisheshika Sutras, Dharma Sutras, all are in the form of sutras. So they found it very convenient, and at that time, those times, people were able to understand the meaning of the sutras. If the Acharya is telling 5 words, they know exactly which Upanishad and which sentence this sutra is talking about and what is being established, with what, for what reason it is being established. All those things they could understand in few words. But over a period of time, it was difficult for people to understand the meaning of the sutras, which are like formulae and very cryptic. So several acharyas wrote commentaries for Brahma Sutras. And of all the available commentaries today, Sri Shankaracharya's is the oldest. Then came Sri Bhaskaracharya and Yadav Prakasha, and then Sri Ramanujacharya's commentaries. Yadav Prakasha and Ramanuja were contemporaries. So there is a little bit difference probably, because Ramanujacharya examines Yadav Prakasha's views also. After that came Sri Madhvacharya's commentary. And all further different commentaries would have come, but primarily these are the views. Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita are the three views, and all others are kind of, we can say, a mix and match of these concepts. So there is no distinct philosophy which has evolved apart from these four. These three, we can say, Dvaita, Advaita, and Vishishtadvaita. Apart from these three, no distinct thought process has come out. But they are all following many parts of these darshanas only, later on commentaries. Bodhayana was a acharya who had written a very detailed commentary on the Brahma Sutras. It was known as Bodhayana Vritti. Vritti is something which is a commentary. It had 1 lakh granthas, it is told. It is not available to us today. A grantha is 32 letters. So like that, it is like a shloka, we can say, 32 letters. 1 lakh shlokas he wrote, explaining the Brahma Sutras, just in too much detail. Shankaracharya also mentions Upavarshacharya, whose commentary he has referred to. Whether Bodhayana and Upavarsha are same or not is debated. And Ramanujacharya had access to Bodhayana Vritti in Kashmir for just 1 day, as per history. And with the help of his Shishya, students such as Kuratalvan and others, he studied it fully in 1 day and later on wrote the detailed commentary of the Brahma Sutras. Several other Purvacharyas had written commentaries based on this. So, Jaimini, even before Badarayana, for example, Vedavyasa, before Vedavyasa, there are commentaries on the Brahma, on the Upanishads. So, Vedavyasa himself mentions Badari, Kashakritsna, and then people like that, Audulomi, the many acharyas' names he mentions Badarayana in his sutras, which shows us that there are acharyas earlier who had also interpreted Upanishad Vakyas. And then Badarayana mentions that some of them he accepts, some of them he doesn't accept. So he writes clearly in the sutras what are the views that he is examining, what is his view, what is his conclusion, all those things in the sutra itself he establishes all that. So Ramanujacharya wrote his biggest commentary, Sri Bhashya, which is neither too big nor too short. Earlier acharyas, like in the Vishishtadvaita stream itself, there are many acharyas, Kapardi, Bharuchi, and then Tankacharya, that is Brahmanandi, Kapardi, Bharuchi. Several names Ramanujacharya mentions in his first work called Vedartha Sangraha, which shows that there are many commentaries earlier, but they were all very short. Bodhayana's Vritti was too long, and the other acharyas who wrote commentaries on that, they were too short. So Ramanuja, what he did was, he wrote a commentary which is neither too big nor too short, but it should convey all the meanings of the Brahma Sutras properly. So if we see, there are 12 commentaries which are written for Brahma Sutras establishing different systems of thought, such as Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita, which are the main thoughts in all of them. So this is as per a book in Kannada titled Comparative Study of 5 Commentaries on Brahma Sutras by Veda Vedanta Vidya Vachaspati Sri T.N. Mallappa. It is in Kannada. So, Sri Shankaracharya was Advaita Darshana, Bhaskaracharya Upadika Bheda, it's called. Yadav Prakasha Swabhavika Bheda. I am not going to details of all these things because though there is some information available in that book, I am not going to detail of this. And Ramanujacharya wrote Vishishtadvaita, Sri Kanta Shivacharya wrote Shakti Vishishtadvaita, Madhvacharya wrote Dvaita, Nimbarka wrote Swabhavika Bhedavada, Sripati Pandita Shivacharya, he wrote Dvaita Dvaitatmaka Vishishtadvaita. That is the name of his darshana. Vallabhacharya wrote Shuddha Advaita. There's some spelling mistake here. Shuddha Advaita. Shukacharya, he wrote Dvaita. Vijnana Bhikshu. Vijnanamrita Bhashya, it is called. Baladeva wrote Achintya Veda Veda. If you see, all of them are either Veda or Abheda, Dvaita, Advaita, or Vishishta Advaita. These are all the primary concepts that are known, that are seen in this. Advaita is Abheda, Dvaita is Veda, Vishishta Advaita is a syncretic view of both Veda and Abheda. It is not really the Veda that is told by Bhaskara or Yadav Prakasha, but it's a different kind of Veda. Their Veda is different. So the word Veda means Veda and Abheda, both. That is having different meaning according to different acharyas, of course. So these 12 commentaries are available on the Brahma Sutra itself. Out of this, primarily Shankaracharya's and Ramanujacharya's and Madhvacharya's commentaries are extremely popular. We see many followers of those today. So this is just a quick view of the available commentaries. Now coming to the Brahma Sutras as per the Vishishtadvaitic system. Vishishtadvaita system itself, there are so many commentaries written on earlier Acharya's commentaries. Like Sri Bhashya has got many commentaries. I have just listed 17. I can list another dozen, but I have not listed all of them here. So there are so many works written in the Vishishtadvaitic Acharya Parampara itself. Ramanujacharya wrote Sri Bhashya, which is a primary reference for most of them. And then Vedanta Deepa and Vedanta Sara. He wrote 3 commentaries for the Brahma Sutras. Vedanta Sara is very brief. It only gives the Siddhanta, the conclusion of the Vishishtadvaitin. Vedanta Deepa gives prima facie view and Siddhanta in a very brief fashion. Sri Bhashya is a detailed exposition of the sutras. So Vedanta Deepa and Vedanta Sara are short works. So this is for different levels of people who want to study the Brahma Sutras. Somebody who wants to just understand Vishishtadvaita Siddhanta in Brahma Sutras, he will study Vedanta Sara. Somebody who wants to know even the prima facie view a little bit, and then the conclusion of the Vishishtadvaitic view, he will study Vedanta Deepa. Somebody who wants to go in more detailed study will study Sri Bhashya, like that. Sudarshana Suri wrote a detailed commentary on the Sri Bhashya itself called Sutta Prakashika. He is basically what he heard from his Acharya, which he condensed into a work called Sutta Prakashika. The word itself says, I am making clear what I heard from my Acharya. That's what it says, Sutta Prakashika. And he wrote an independent commentary also on the Brahma Sutras called Shruta Pradipika. That is also available. Meghanada Risuri, it's an Acharya who wrote Nyaya Prakashika. Vedanta Deshika wrote Tattvatika, only partly available. Rangaramanuja Muni wrote Mula Bhava Prakashika. And then he also wrote Bhava Prakashika, which is a commentary on the Shuddha Prakashika itself. And Varadanarayana Bhattaraka wrote Nyaya Sudarshana. Vedanta Deshika wrote another work called Adhikarana Saravali, which is a masterly work on the Sri Bhashya itself. He examines Sri Bhashya and then clarifies in Sri Bhashya itself. We get many doubts. And there are a couple of views which have come afterwards, which all those things are clarified by Vedanta Deshika in Adhikarana Saravali. And Varadanatha Suri, he actually wrote Adhikarana Chintamani. Rangaramanuja Muni wrote Vishayavakya Deepika. Kapisthalam Deshikacharya wrote Sharirika Adhikarana Ratnamala. These are all later. Appaya Dikshita also has written a commentary called Nyayamayukha Malika. Appaya Dikshita wrote commentaries for all the three Brahma Sutras, Shankaracharyas, Madhvacharyas, and Ramanujacharyas. The Ramanujacharyas commentary is called Nyaya Mayukha Malika. It faithfully follows the Vishishtadvaitic system on Sri Bhashya, based on Sri Bhashya and all that. And His Holiness Sri Abhinava Ranganatha Parkala Swami, belonging to the Parkal Mutt, wrote a very elaborate work called Gudhartha Sangraha, which is also published partly. He examines Sri Bhashya in great detail. There were certain views after Ramanuja's times that, and even later, recently, few hundred years back, etc., that Ramanuja has not studied Shankara Bhashya or Advaita Darshana works, etc. So in this work of Gudhartha Sangraha, what Srimad Abhinava Ranganatha Parkala Swami has done, he shows every concept that is established in Sri Bhashya, how it is found in various works of other Acharyas. This Gudhartha Sangraha, for the very first sutra of Brahma Sutra, Sri Bhashya is very elaborate. For that he wrote the commentary 10 times more detailed, because he establishes every concept of Ramanuja with reference to certain work of other Acharyas. How it's clear that Ramanujacharya has studied so many works before writing this work, and it's very clearly established. That was the purpose of that work. Very huge work. It has got 1000 pages for the first sutra alone. The total commentary put together, Sri Bhashya and Sutta Prakashika and Gudhartha Sangraha, that book has got 1000 pages just for the first sutra. So you can imagine how much depth he has gone into. Uttamur Veeraraghavacharya, celebrated author of so many hundreds of works, he wrote a Bhashyartha Deepika commentary. And there are many other works. Apart from this, another dozen works I can name, but I have just given a view to show how many authors have studied and tried to establish the meaning, explain in so much detail. Because Sri Bhashya is a very, very, very tough work to understand, not easy. And so because of that, so many commentaries came. And the Brahma Sutras, independent works, are also there within Vishishtadvaitic system. They also wrote briefly, but primarily they are all based on Sri Bhashya only. That is the source for all. So they are focused mainly on resolving the doubts in the Veda Vakyas in the form of Nyaya. Paksha is proposition, Hetu reason, Sadhya to be achieved, Drishtanta example. The definition of a sutra itself, there is a Lakshana definition. Alpaksharam, Asandigdham, Saravat, Vishwatomukham, Astobham, Anavadyancha, Sutram, Sutravido Viduhu. This is the definition of a sutra itself. What is a sutra if somebody asks? A unique definition has to be given. This only is sutra. Nothing else can have all these qualities. Only a sutra should have these qualities. That is how the definitions are given. Perfect definitions. It should have least possible letters. Alpa aksharam. And asandigdham. It should be unambiguous. Saravat, containing the essence. Vishwatomukham, containing wide meaning. So it's a rule. Should not be limited to only one part of a Upanishad, one Vakya. It should apply to several other places of similar instances. Everywhere, wherever you find in any Upanishad a similar instance, this sutra should apply there also. So it contains wide meaning. Anavadyancha, without, and astobham. Astobham means without any stop or obstruction. Like in Samaveda we say stobha. Ha, vu, ha, vu, ha, vu. Like that it comes. It's called stobhaksharas. It is not like that. Sutra should not be like that. It should be short, clear, give a proper meaning, should have wide application, it should convey the essence, and then it should be faultless. Anavadyam, it should be faultless. All these qualities which is there, it's called a sutra. So an example is Janmadyasya Yataha is one sutra. Janma Adi Asya Yataha. The sutra has to be broken into words properly. There will be compound words, samasas. We should understand how to break the samasas to understand the meanings. Very complicated, not very easy. So, yataha means from whom the creation, sustenance, and dissolution of this world happens. Asya, asya jagataha, this world. Yataha, from whom? These words. Janma adi. Janma and other things, creation, etc. happens. That is, Brahman is understood there. Sutrakara doesn't say every word, every meaning. Wherever you see there is a creation, sustenance, dissolution of this world in any Upanishads, any part of the Veda, wherever this is told, whatever is the entity that is told to be the responsible for that is Brahman. That is the sutra is conveying that. And the primary Vedic source is from Taittiriya Upanishad. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. If you see, Badarayana doesn't tell us which Upanishad is this referring to, which sentence in which Upanishad, what is he telling, what is being established here. He won't tell all those details that we have to understand. That's why it became so difficult over a period of time to understand the meaning of the sutras. Our acharyas have understood because they had all the works, the Vedas, Upanishads, and Shrutis, Smriti, Itihasas, Puranas, all the other darshanas. They have studied everything they had in their fingertips. So they could identify immediately this sutra is definitely referring to this Vakya of this Upanishad, and this is the meaning established here. And all the sutras and how they are classified to chapters, sections, chapters, etc., they are all very consistently aligned in their thought, and they establish the metaphysics of the system most wonderful way that we can study. When we study, we can know, study the Brahma Sutras. So it's most wonderful work to study, and it's extremely challenging also to understand. So Badarayana was able to resolve all the doubts that one may have in the Upanishad sentences across all Upanishads, show that there is a definite system of philosophy. Several Western authors said that they said there is no single system of philosophy in the Upanishads, but Badarayana shows very clearly. And so there is no doubt at all, and everybody accepts this. Sutras one like a syllogism, wide application, similar context existing across Vedas, accepted by all the masters, Shankaracharya, Bhaskaracharya, Yadav Prakashar, whoever it is, all of them accept Brahma Sutras. Till now, nobody has pointed out any deficiency in the sutras through interpretation. Though interpretation is very difficult, varies among masters. Nobody has said, Badarayana did not clarify this doubt in the Upanishad. Nobody has pointed out that. That means a proper system can be understood from the sutras very well. They have shown very, very wonderfully. So the chapters themselves have adhikaranas or sections. Adhikarana means it is a vishaya, a subject. So one adhikarana is talking about one subject matter. Each of which addresses a specific topic, and mantras in the Upanishad. It uses a wise 5-step approach: the subject, doubt, prima facie view, reply, and conclusion. Purva Paksha, and what is the Vishaya? What is the subject matter of this Adhikarana? What is the doubt that we get in this matter, in this aspect? What is the prima facie view? What is our reply to that? And what is the conclusion? These 5, they are not directly evident to us from the sutras, but only commentaries show us this way. And the number and other things, there are differences. So there are certain things which all of them agree, that is the end of a chapter, 4 adhyayas. All of them accept there are 4 adhyayas, because Badarayana has got a signature at the end of an adhyaya. He repeats words twice in the sutra, which is the last sutra of a chapter. He repeats words twice. So each chapter end is agreed upon by everyone. But within that there are differences, etc., which we will go and see in more detail further. So we will see about the sutra structure and other things, how they are presented and all those things in the future sessions. So today it was more like a brief introduction, and we will go into more details and explore these topics in a little more detail as much as possible within this short course. It's not going to be a complete study of any Vyakhyana, but it's going to be more a view of what is being taught in the Brahma Sutras and how it is taught, how they have been interpreted, etc. We understand. So with that, I conclude today's session and leave the session open for any questions, etc. Thank you. Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha. Ram Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. So those who want to ask any questions, they can unmute and then ask your question.
Common
So
one
very
question. Sorry, common one question.
Tell me.
The Gaudiya Sampradaya is pretty close to the Ramanuja Vishishtadvaita philosophy.
Okay.
So how does Govinda Bhashya differ from Sri Bhashyam?
I have not done a comparative study of them, so but I cannot answer that question. But there will be a lot of differences, primarily in respect of how Shruti Vakyas are accepted, validity of the Shruti Vakyas, what are the primary things that they teach upon, and things like that. There will be a lot of internal differences will be there. So I cannot answer that question now because Govinda Bhashya I have not seen. And the Gaudiya Bhashas, there are quite a few differences there also. The Vedas are not fully accepted as Apaurusheya and things like that. And there are many differences in the Gaudiya Bhashya. And Vishnu Loka, Vishnu Pada, Goloka, those things are all they talk about. I think some. So there are many. It is not in line with Shruti completely. That I can say in one sentence.
In your space, one.
Yeah.
but this ISKCON is following Gaudiya or other philosophy?
Yeah, primarily I think they are following Gaudiya only.
No, ISKCON is following Gaudiya philosophy.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yes.
That means they don't accept Ramanuja's philosophy.
Not fully. Their views are
Okay.
very different. Their
Adi and
interpretation of
Ramanuja.
Bhagavad Gita, their interpretation of
Correct.
very,
That
very
is why
different. Many
That is why
places.
Bhagavad Gita and other thing we should read our Ramanuja's philosophy, not Gaudiya ISKCON's.
Yes, there are too many differences which are against what is told in the Shrutis.
Acha, there are a lot of differences.
Yes, lots of differences.
Okay, Swami, thank you, Adi and Ramanujas.
We will go to the Vishayavakyas, etc. when we go into the sutras. As we go further, we go into more and more detail of all this. So we will get into that.
Again, Swami Namaskaram.
Tell me.
Again, is it any order to learn the Sri Bhashan, like first Vedanta Saram, Vedanta Devam, then Adhikarana Saravali, then goes to Shuddha Prakashiki and Sri Bhashyam? Straight away we can start the Sri Bhashyam and we can continue the Adhikarana Saravali later?
Straight away starting Sri Bhashya is very difficult. One should have proper background. Some background is needed for that. For Nyaya Darshana, Vyakarana and all those things, some basic background is needed. Otherwise, it will go into a very detailed study. And I did a Sri Bhashya study in Kannada language, but it went into 408 classes. You can imagine how much depth it is. So one has to have the dedication and to study in that depth and put a lot of effort to understand, listen to it many times, study it many times, needs a lot of effort. So Vedanta Sara is quick and short. One can start with that or Vedanta Deepa, one of them, and then go into Vedanta Sri Bhashya, etc. Vedanta Sangraha is also a very deep subject only. So there are other works also, some of them in Tamil, like Chillare Rahasyangal by Vedanta Deshika, which is a very good first level study to take up for understanding some basic stuff and then going into study of the Brahma Sutras, etc. So there are many approaches depending on the person's eligibility and person's basic background, etc. We suggest differently.
Again, Swami. In this case, how about the Swami Navalpakam Swami's explanations for Sri Bhashyam? Is it period to Abhinav Ranganatha Swami, Desiya Ranganatha Swami, or later to his period?
Which Navalpakam Swami you are talking about?
Navalpakam Vasudevacharya Swami.
It's much later.
He-
No, he is now only, he wrote now only. In Tamil, he has written Sri Bhashya, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
That is a translation. That is basically a translation into Tamil. That is a very recent work. Abhinava Ranganatha Swami is old, much old.
Is it available fully, Swami? Because I asked, inquired in the
Which
Parakalamad
one?
itself, there's Abhinav Ranganatha Swami work. I didn't
That is
request
not published fully. The Good Artha Sangraha is available as a soft copy in the archive itself. You can look at it.
archive itself. In
Yeah.
the site, Swami?
Yes, you can see and search and get it. It's a 1,000-page book. Good Artha
I didn't
Sangraha
know.
is extremely difficult. After Sri Bhashya only you can study that. First you have to study Sri
Again,
Bhashya.
Swami.
Yeah.
I didn't understand which one.